Hi, everyone. My name is Angie Viscianen, and I am the founder of Leg Up Legal. We provide a mentoring program that connects pre-law students to lawyers for mentoring so they can learn more about the legal profession before they decide if they want to go to law school. And we started doing these meetups at the beginning of COVID-19 to connect everyone in the legal profession, pre-law students, current law students, lawyers, just get everyone talking together so that they would build a community and not feel so alone during these times of social distancing. So we do these meetups every Tuesday and Thursday, and I bring in lawyers, legal professionals, and law school admissions consultants, and all sorts of great folks to come talk to you guys about topics that may help you in your career. And I'm excited today to introduce Annette Chody, and she is going to talk to you today about legal blogging and SEO. So Annette, I'll let you take it away.
Hello. So first of all, it's an honor to be here. I absolutely love what you're doing for this community. I think you are a much needed voice in this space. So I am super honored and excited to be part of it. So I'm talking about legal blogging and SEO. But before I get to that, a couple things. Why am I talking about it, right? Who am I? I have been an attorney for 20 years. And I worked for the federal government, for the U.S. Department of Labor. And then a few years ago, it was soul-sucking enough that I really needed to pivot into something else. So I kind of thought, well, maybe I'll start my own law firm. I didn't know what I was doing, right? So it turns out a friend of mine who's in the legal community said, hey, if you're looking to transition into something, maybe you should consider legal, blogging just on the side. And I'm like, I didn't even know what it was. I remember the day I had to look up, it was a while ago, SEO, what SEO stood for. I had no idea. So the long story short is that I started to write for very large marketing agencies because I was having so much fun. After 20 years of working for the federal government, I just was ready for something new. So I was writing all of these blogs for really large law firms throughout the United States. And of course, they have budgets of like $15,000, $20,000 to spend on their marketing. And I realized as I was doing it that I loved it so much, but that the small and solo law firms are just this, it's a huge demographic. But the problem is that no one is catering to them. Everyone is saying to them, look, if you come to our digital agency, you have to do everything with us. You have to do your website, your blog posts, your social media. You have to do everything through us. And if somebody says, well, I had my brother-in-law do my website and I think it looks pretty good on Wix. I just need some content that is optimized for SEO. Everybody would turn them away. So that's the long story of how then I developed my own digital marketing agency, which is called Blockquill. One of the things that is a priority in my company that I stress is that the intention is to demystify SEO for small and solo law firms. And that is whether they hire me or not. I am very passionate about putting out free content for lawyers to help them do as much as they can on their own. Either hiring maybe even a VA from Upwork or whatever it is, so that they can grow their law firm to the point where maybe they could afford to hire a digital marketing or social media person. So with that said, I know we have a very sort of varied demographic in this room, from people who are considering law school to people who are going to law school to people who are already lawyers. So what I'm going to talk about today is the entire field of legal content and how it relates to SEO and how you can either consider that as perhaps a supplement to your career as you go through law school, or as something that you want to do as a lawyer yourself. You want to sort of create this content on your own. So why are legal, oh, and by the way, if anyone ever has any questions during this, just write it in the chat. And if I miss it, Angie, please just scream at me. Because I really want this to be like, if you have a question about something, I want to be able to answer that right away. So SEO is search engine optimization. And that just means you're trying to get as high on Google first page as you can without spending any money for advertising. Like you might spend money on a content writer, or you might spend money on a social media scheduler like SmarterQ. But what SEO stands for is getting high ranking articles or traffic organically to your website. So the reason that content, articles, law blogs are so important for SEO, SEO is like a jigsaw puzzle. So there's a lot of different pieces in it. There's your Google My Business page. There's your reviews. There's the whether or not Google sees you as an expert, because lawyers fall into this thing called your money or your life, which means that they have a higher standard to meet regarding the content they put on their website. All these little pieces are so important to SEO, but some pieces are bigger than others, if I'm being honest. And one of the pieces that is very, very big, in fact, potentially the biggest piece, is content. The reason is severalfold. One is because obviously the more content you put on your website, the more the Google bots have to crawl and look at. Google's algorithm says that unless you are providing consistent, valuable content on your website, it kind of sees it as it's either living or dying. There's no real in between. So the more content you put out, let's say you do 2 blog posts a week, Google's like, wow, this person's really putting out a lot of content. And it factors into their algorithm, and your entire website starts to move up in the rankings, not just that post. It all works together in some mysterious way, like a FICO score. I don't know. We just know that we are trying to do our best, right, to increase our credit score and to increase what Google likes. So 1 blog post a week is great. 2 is better. 3 is even better than that. What is also important is the more content you have on your website, the longer people will probably stay on your website, because they'll get to your 1 blog post about, let's say you're an estate planning attorney and you've written a blog post about the difference between wills and trusts. You've also written an article about the difference between revocable and irrevocable trusts. And you've also written an article about special needs trusts. And then you've written an article about healthcare directives. Well, if you interlink all those articles together, there are things that people will continue to want to see. You know, it's sort of like how we all binge watch things on Netflix. And when we're waiting for the next season to come out of Umbrella Academy, we have to go to somewhere else, right? We have to take our decision to view something else on Netflix somewhere else, because the next season of Umbrella Academy isn't out yet. And we're all waiting for it. But in the meantime, I'm going to get hooked on maybe something else. So you don't want them to get hooked on anything else. You want them to stay on your website. This also helps something called a bounce rate. A bounce rate is literally how long it takes people to come to your website, hang out, and then bounce. So you want people to stay on your website as long as possible. Google tracks this particular bounce rate in their algorithm. If people come to your website and it takes forever to load, or if they come to your website and start reading something and then they're like, this isn't what I thought it was going to be, and they bounce off your website, Google sees that as a negative. Versus someone who comes to your website, they spend maybe a minute or 2 reading an article, and then they're like, oh, I'm going to look at this article. And if they spend several minutes on your website, that's great for you, because you look like an expert, right? You are giving them valuable content that they're interested in. They now feel like, wow, this person probably knows what he or she is talking about. And then hopefully they pick up the phone and call you, right? That's the goal at the end of the day. But even if they don't pick up the phone and call you, they have done you a service for Google, because they've stayed on your website so long that Google little bots think, wow, that person really has a lot of great content on their website. Nobody's leaving quickly. So that's good for your algorithm too. So what you want to do is a little bit of I think it's like a 4-step process that I have. And a lot of this content actually that goes much more in depth is on my website, on my blog, because I practice what I preach, which is that I create a blog. So I have things to talk about with you or in social media, or answer questions for people who are like, hey, I think I want a blog, but I don't know what to write about, whatever it is. So the 4-step process looks like this. The first thing is you need to figure out what you want to write about. Now, I have a whole blog post on this, but to make it quick, the very easiest thing you do, look at your competitors. Somebody out there's crushing it in your field. So go to their website. Now you can't plagiarize, okay? You can't do that. But the topics that are of interest to someone who's interested in estate planning in Pennsylvania is similar to what you're dealing with in Idaho. Okay, so look at people who are crushing it on social media. Just type in estate planning attorney, see who comes up, look at their blog. This will give you a plethora of ideas to pull from. Also, whatever questions your lawyers ask you when they pick up the phone and call you, personal injury attorneys, bankruptcy attorneys, DUI attorneys, every single question they ask can be a blog post. How long is this going to take? How much money can I get? You can't answer how much money, right? Because there's bar marketing rules. But what you can do is say, these are the types of compensation. You can get compensation for medical bills, future medical bills, pain and suffering, lost wages, future lost wages, property damage. So you can go into all of that in a blog post.
Hey, Annette, I wanted to chime in real quick and just make a point as to one of the things that I was always curious about as a law student was, okay, well, how, or even as a college student who's looking to try to get experience by working with lawyers, you know, I think a lot of people are wondering, like, how do I get my foot in the door? And sometimes, you know, people are scared that they don't have enough legal experience to go work for a lawyer. But if you start to learn things about the lawyer's business, like blogging, like SEO, all of those things may be really intimidating for the lawyers. They may not know. They're not an expert in those areas. You're never going to out-lawyer a lawyer, but you may outbid them as far as the knowledge that you have in other areas. So starting to work with lawyers doing things like legal marketing or legal blogging or social media effort, those will get your foot in the door to start working with these people. And so I think that it might be really good for even pre-law students to hear about this topic, because it may be a way that you can drive value for the lawyer. You know, you can say like, hey, I've, you know, spent some time researching these topics. I think that I could really help improve your, you know, website or your blogging activities, and I could really contribute some value to you, and that will give you an opportunity to work with them. So sometimes, you know, yeah, you might not find many job postings out there for college students, but if you can find a way to drive value for a lawyer, you can find ways to get hired even if they're not really looking.
I totally agree with this. And in fact, I'm active in a lot of paralegal groups as well, because this is a skill set that paralegals can also use to sort of enhance their value to a law firm. So you are absolutely right. If two lawyers are coming in for an internship or for a, you know, beginning position in a law firm, and they're basically equal, but I know that one of them is going to be able to write blog posts for me that are optimized for SEO or know how to run social media or something like that. It is absolutely, you're absolutely right, Angie. It is such a huge asset to have, especially for sort of medium-sized law firms or even smaller law firms that have been around a really long time and had based their clients on referrals. And now they're—
Yeah, I was going to say that, like, for all of these solo practitioners, a lot of them, you know, have built their business on referrals, but they may not be as social media savvy or as tech savvy, so they may not be running a blog. And I think that it's a good opportunity to try to get your foot in the door with those types of shops too. And honestly, social or solo practitioners and medium-sized firms, they usually do ad hoc hiring. You know, they're only hiring as an as-needed basis. So it might be the best way to get into those kinds of firms.
Yeah, I actually have, I have a course called Law Firm SEO 101, but I have actually considered creating another course, which is basically on blog posts, like how to SEO blog posts, start to finish. And I think a lot of lawyers would probably not purchase it. Some might, but I think law students, paralegals might do that. So that's something that I'm actually considering. You're very, very right. And I think that the truth of the matter is none of this is going away. Okay. The interweb is not going anywhere. And so if you want to be successful as, unless you're getting ready to retire and sell your law firm or whatever you're going to do, you really don't have a choice. You really need to be in digital marketing at some level. So to get back, and if anybody, like I said, if anybody has any questions, and you're absolutely right, Angie, this is just such a great skill to learn. So if you want to write a blog post, the first step is to find content, and frankly, just go poach the content from other people. Now, you cannot, again, plagiarize, okay? Google considers anything over 4% plagiarism, so I would even shy away from quoting people, because Google still doesn't really understand that the quote that goes around the internet is necessarily, like if you have a quote from like a senator or something regarding a recent statute or something like that. So after you have the content idea, the second step, there's 4 steps. The second step is that you want to keyword it. So this is the place that a lot of people get hung up on, because they don't really understand how all of it works. So this is like a college course, but I'll just dilute it down to like 3 minutes or 4 minutes, which is that when you put a keyword into Google, which is not a word, okay, it's a phrase. They say long tail keyword, it's just a phrase. Whatever you're putting into Google to find your results, vegan chocolate chip cookie, whatever it is. Okay. You want your article that you are writing to be ranking for a keyword. But the problem is if you don't have a very strong or a website that has been around for a while, you are not going to be able yet to compete for the really high fruit, like personal injury attorney, Phoenix, Arizona, criminal defense attorney, New York City. You're probably not going to be able to rank for that on the first page of Google. Now, you should include that within your article, but maybe what you need to look at is, in bankruptcy, maybe you need to write something about the CARES Act regarding bankruptcy in your particular state. I know that bankruptcy isn't state related, but like maybe as it relates to certain political or social things that are going on in your state. So when you're first starting out, you want your keywords. There's this sort of magic. It's a little bit of an art and a science. You want something that has people are searching for, but that not many people are ranking for yet. So obviously I use very strong and powerful tools to do that, because that's my day job. This is what I do. But I do always like to tell people of a super fabulous tool that is really worth its money, and it's cheap. It's called Keywords Everywhere. And it is a Google extension, and it's crazy cheap. It's like pennies. And what it will do is if you type something into Google, like a vegan chocolate chip cookie, it will show you how often that is searched. I have put that up against my tool that I use, and it's pretty good. Now, it won't tell you, and it'll even give you some options of other keywords to use and how often they're ranked and things like that. Now, it's not as powerful as what I use, but if you need to start somewhere and you want to kind of see how many people are searching for these particular keywords, wills versus trusts, or estate planning during COVID, or whatever phrase you want to look for, that is a great tool to use that is inexpensive. So now we've got the topic, and now we've got an idea of the types of keywords. I will just interject right here. Just click on the first 2 or 3 articles regarding whatever it is you're trying to search for, and then emulate that. So if they write 1,000 words, you write 1,500. If they have 1,500 words in a video, you have 2,000 words in a video and an infographic, right? Because at the end of the day, Google wants to serve up to the searcher the best possible content. So make it easy for them. Give them the best possible content. Now, the very best is video, which works against me because I don't do video, I do content. But the very best is video. The second best is video plus long form content, which is a minimum of 1,000 words, bare minimum. And for people who disagree with me on that, Angie, I'm just going to say this. Go to Google and look, okay? Because some people are like, oh, well, my digital marketing agency told me I only needed 500 to 800 words. Okay, please show me where on Google 500 words, 100 is the introduction, 100 is the call to action at the end. You got 200-300 words in the middle. When does that ever rank first on Google?
So I have a question though. So if you're talking about video and then long form text, like would a transcript of the video work, or do you want to stay away from doing a transcript?
Okay, so I always say something is better than nothing. So if the only thing that you can do time-wise, work-wise, whatever it is to get a transcript up there, that's great. Just make sure when you're talking in the video, use some keywords so that it shows up in the transcript. The transcript is great. What is better is to actually write an independent article which is getting to my step 3. Thank you very much, Angie, because
You're welcome.
laid out a beautiful segue for step 3, which is formatting your actual blog post. So yes, I would say if you cannot do anything else, do a video and then just do the transcripts. And the transcripts now, there are a bunch of different companies on that now that will do it for you pretty inexpensively. Another good idea if you're going to do video is to do the subtitles, because people read these videos, right? Like when they're in business meetings on Zoom or whatever, right? I mean, that's just the truth. So you need to have that. And that is actually, I think it's free if you do a video on Zoom. I think they include it for free. I know they do on Facebook. So anyway, but if you use a different tool to capture your video, just make sure to have subtitles there, because it captioned, because it's really good. But yes, so transcript is better than nothing. And the better thing is to have an actual blog post that goes along with it, which won't be too hard to create if you've already sort of had the content. Now, my personal preference, what I tell law firms to do is write the content first and then do a video about it, because it's a lot easier in my mind for people to go that direction, right? So when you are writing your content, we all know you are writing for your potential clients to eventually pick up the phone and call you. But you are also writing for the Google bots. And I always say that even though they are not our robot overlords yet, they're pretty close. And they understand everything that's going on much more than we think they do. Now, they're not perfect yet, though, which is why you need to give them a little bit of an assist. So how do you do that? You make sure that there are keywords in your title, in a couple of the H2s, that you block everything out so it's very easily readable, that you have like H2 headings, H3 headings. And if you don't know what those things are, you can just, you can Google that as well. Make sure you have bullet point lists, all of the things, and make it very visually appealing, because a lot of people are looking at these also on, their smartphones. So the other thing that I will suggest is to use pictures to sort of break up the content. Always use at least, for 1,000 words, 2 outbound links to authoritative sources. Why would you want to do that? Not because you want people to go away from your site, but because when the Google bots are reading it, they will understand that content, like, oh, well, Angie just wrote an article about estate planning and now she's linking to this statute. Well, she must know what she's talking about. So that's also very important. And also to have calls to action and your phone number and your law firm within your actual article. People say, why would I do that? Why would I write the name of my law firm and the phone number in an article that is on my webpage? Because a lot of people, which is going to get to step 4, find that article through social media. They didn't come through the front door of your website. So they're just reading your article. So make it really easy for them to contact you. So the last step is you've got this great article that you've written. You've got great content. You've got it's SEO and keyworded. You've got it all organized and it's beautiful. Now what, right? You can write the great American novel, but if nobody reads it, how good is it? So what you want to do is you want to take that article link and spread it everywhere you can on social media. And the very best way to do this, in my opinion, is to get a scheduling tool. My favorite is SmarterQ. Now, I don't get any kickback or anything from it. I wish I did. But this tool allows you to put like a sentence or two, whatever you want to put, and then a link to that post. And then you can set it up to go whatever day you want. And then you can also have it like a crock pot, set it and forget it. And like 4 months or 6 months or a year from now, that same post can come out. So for one blog article that's 1,000 words, you can probably create 4 or 5 different little sentences that are little gold pieces out of the article. Put a different image on every one of those posts in SmarterQ, have them all link back to the same article. And it looks like now you have 5 pieces of content, but you don't. You just have 1 piece of content, all with a different little sentence, all with a different little picture, gavel or what courtroom, whatever it is that goes back to your article, you can do it on. And SmarterQ allows you to do this all at once for Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. So it's all done for you. So work smarter and not harder. And my best suggestion to you is, if you don't have the time to do this, it's really important to do it. Because again, you want people coming back to home base. You want people coming back to your website. That's what helps your SEO. The best way to do that is to have articles to give people to go back to your website all the time. You can hire someone from Upwork to do this for you. If you are an attorney, I know we have some attorneys in the room. If you just simply don't have the time to do this, you can create the system that you want it to look like and everything in SmarterQ, and then show someone else how to do it very inexpensively. So that's kind of my chat for today, just regarding everything that you need to do to create a strong article on a website, on a law firm website, that will increase your organic SEO traffic. So, I mean, I could talk about this all day, but I think, Angie, if people have questions, that might be better. Or else I can just talk all day. No, just
No, that was super, super interesting. I learned a lot actually about things that I should be doing on my blog, on my website. So I will be implementing those tips imminently. But yeah, I mean, I'd love to open it up to the floor if people have questions about this. And if, while we're giving people time to think about their questions, can you talk a little bit about some of the things that, I guess, what was interesting to you when you started getting into this world of legal blogging? Like what did you learn back then that got you really thinking, I could do this long term?
Well, I think God kind of makes everyone different, which is the great thing, right? And for me, I just happen, there's a lot of things, most things in life I don't do well. That's just the truth. But one of the things that I have been blessed with is the ability to write a lot of content quickly. And I love it. I love to write, and I love to write about legal issues, and I'm fast at it. I mean, really, I was writing about 15, 20,000 words a day. That's really not, I mean, I can easily do that. So it was something that I learned that, first of all, I didn't even know that this career existed. And I was never particularly entrepreneur, right? I mean, I spent 20 years in the federal government, so it wasn't like I was a risk taker. But I think if people are interested in any of these different types of alternative legal career choices, or using this as a vehicle to get a foot in the door with a large law firm, I think your best bet is to just see whether or not you like it. Because if you don't like doing it, go find something that you love doing. Like maybe you want to do social media for law firms, or maybe you like to do, you want to reach out in the public domain and do like press releases, or whatever it is that you like to do that's different. The best way to find out whether you like to do it or not is to just try it. So there's a few different places you can do that. You can try to get on with one of the very large digital marketing companies, or try to get onto a content mill. I hate even saying that, but they do not pay very much, frankly. But it's a way to learn, right? Like nobody gets paid very much, right? When we're learning, I didn't get paid very much when I was learning all of it. And just see if that's something that interests you. If SEO, if digital marketing, if writing a lot interests you, then, for me anyway, I was not surprised how much I loved it, because I love researching. And there's not a lot, I mean, with the internet now, research, please. It's so easy, right? Like, I feel so old, like when I was a kid, but I had to shepherdize using an actual law library with actual books. Okay? Like these things up in the corner. Like we didn't have the interwebs for anything. Westlaw was just barely getting on the internet.
Isn't it hard to imagine for all of you who are in law school now, like Westlaw not being Westlaw?
In fact, the funny side note of that is that a lot of law firms in Kansas City were hiring interns from law school, from UMKC, just because we all got a free password to get us hooked. So we all had a free password into Westlaw if you were a law student, right? Because they wanted to get you hooked at the time. And it was so expensive at the time to have a Westlaw. I don't even know how much it costs now, but it was so expensive. It was really cost prohibitive for even medium-sized firms to get it. And so they would hire us as interns just for our Westlaw password.
Yeah, it is pretty expensive even now.
I'm sure it is.
In the chat box, so they asked, within the legal industry, are there tips that work for certain sectors versus others, or for different locales?
Yes. So, yes is the answer. So I've written throughout the United States and Canada. There are certain things that never change. Personal injury and car accident law, although the statutes might be different, the statute of limitations might be different, whether or not they're comparative negligence or, whatever kind of estate there are, you have to always be very aware of that when you're writing an article, because the laws in Ohio are different than the ones in Massachusetts, let's say. So that is always very important, to make sure that if you are writing articles for a law firm, that you get your law right. Because while a lawyer should always scan it and make sure that it is right, you would not ever want to say that statute of limitations is 2 years if it's actually only 1, or whatever it is. Also, there are certain areas of law that are more regional specific. For example, immigration attorneys that I work with, the immigration demographic in Florida is very different than the immigration demographic in Minnesota, right? So, Florida is going to have more of a Hispanic population. There is a very large Middle Eastern population in Minnesota. So while the laws are also different in both of those states, state law, there's also federal law, which you have to address both of those. But then there's also sort of a political or cultural element that differs. Listen, there's no cultural element in, dog bite law. Just the statutes are different in different states. But there are certain areas of law that definitely have a cultural or social or political aspect to them. I wrote a lot last year about, in California, there were a lot of law firms that wanted content regarding the Black Lives Matter protests and the riots that occurred, and whether or not the police had rights in certain circumstances and not in other circumstances. That is obviously an issue across the board throughout the United States, right? What law enforcement can and cannot do, that is just a legal issue. But because there was such a social and political environment there, you absolutely had to take that into consideration in that particular location. Because frankly, what was happening in, Seattle and what was happening in, California and things, it really wasn't happening in, Kansas. So if I were going to write about criminal justice or expungements or whatever I'm writing about in Kansas, that's going to just have a different overarching feel than what exactly was happening at that moment that they wanted on their blog in California. So yes, absolutely, 100%.
If you want to use this as a way to get your foot in the door at a law firm, how do you demonstrate that you can write optimized content with SEO without first writing for a law firm?
Right? It's the chicken and the egg that every person always has to go through. How do you get experience but you can't get experience without being, right? It's the same thing. What I would suggest is this. First of all, I'm always looking for very good writers. So if someone is truly interested in this, they can contact me to get a foot in the door for this. I'm still a small entrepreneur, but I do have writers that work for me. So that's the first way. If you're not interested in working with me because you don't like me, then there are a ton of other places you can go. I would highly suggest going to the interweb and Googling legal digital marketing agencies, and then just spamming all of them with emails saying, are you looking for a writer? And most of them always are. The onboarding process is usually quite intense with them, and they don't pay very much. But at the end of it, you will have the ability to either use that content, scraped for, privacy, or you will know how to write an article that you can then write as a sample. So there are very good large digital marketing agencies out there. I worked for several of them. And frankly, when I first started out, I'm not going to even lie, it was for like pennies on that. I mean, it was just not much, not pennies. Okay. But it was really not much. And the problem also is when you first start, everything takes longer, right? Because it's like my babcha always said, everything's easier once you know how. But before you know how, you don't get the formula yet. And there is a bit of a formula to law firm blogs. There is, just like there's, not all law firm blogs are the same, but a waltz is a waltz and a minuet is a minuet. There's a different cadence to those. There is a cadence to law firm articles when they're done correctly and optimized for SEO. So that would be my best suggestion, is to find someone who is willing to mentor you in this process and then work your way up. Right. That's such a cool answer.
I have some thoughts on that too. So I actually had a law student that I mentored a few years ago that he was having a really hard time getting into IP because he was at a law school that was very focused in litigation. So his law school was known as like a trial school. So like you come out of there knowing how to be a kick butt litigator, but nobody was going to recruit at that law school for soft IP. So, and he was having a really hard time trying to find a job. And so he decided to start up his own IP blog, and he started reaching out to IP practitioners and just asking them, hey, what are some interesting issues that you're following that you want to get more content about? And he started writing on his own and created his own IP blog that actually became pretty popular. And so using all of his own strategies to boost his own blog, he was able to contribute to other people's blogs and say like, hey, I already have experience in doing this. I've been running my own blog for about a year now, and these are the things that I've seen that work and don't work. I've also seen people who have used their, school to be able to launch new blogs. So you can use, like, one of my friends, she actually started the first IP blog at American University. It was just like, I think, they had a law review that was focused in IP too, but she wanted to have content that was coming out more quickly, more timely. Yeah. And so they launched a blog through the university. And that's always a good excuse to say like, oh, hey, here's some work product that's public that you can see that, I've done through my school. You could also do that as a pre-law student. You can start doing that through your pre-law group. If you have like a pre-law fraternity or, a pre-law sorority or even just ask your pre-law advising office, can I start blogging about certain legal issues or, start talking about different practice areas, stuff like that, so that you can find ways to work writing into your resume. And of course, make sure you're updating your resume and your LinkedIn profile with all those experiences. And if you're taking courses, like if you take a course like that Annette offers, or if you take a certification course on SEO or something like that, there's also tons of courses on like Coursera and, tons of other online learning platforms that talk about blogging, SEO, and you can use those and add those to your, experience to show people like, hey, I've actually taken the time to learn about these issues and research them. So.
Yeah, I think that that's great. My only caveat with all of this is if you are not going to officially learn under someone else and you're going to take the helm and do it yourself, I think that's fantastic. The only little caveat I would put is that the most important thing you can remember is that bar marketing guidelines for all states are different, which is why it's just best to always have a conservative approach. That would mean never giving actual legal advice, never using words like the best attorney or you can't even say that you have a special, even if you're specializing in intellectual property, you're not allowed to say it unless you have an actual certificate of specialization. It's crazy. So just be very careful with adjectives is what I tell people. So you can say, some people balk at experienced, but I think experienced is okay because you are just saying you have experience, but it even can get down to the weeds like that. So when you see a lot of law firm websites saying, you know, we can help you get the results, or we are the most winning law firm, like, careful. I just cringe every time I see it, because whenever anyone puts, and there's a majority of law firms that do that, the bar can just come in and just shut and fine you, frankly, suspend your license. It's a big deal. So I would just say that if you are trying to enter this petri dish of digital marketing, that would be the one thing that you look out for the most above anything else, because that is what can get you and attorneys that you are writing for in big trouble. And they may not even know that. They may not really know. Not every state has said that a website is marketing explicitly. They just haven't gotten around to it yet. They will say that. So eventually. So
those are great points. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely hazards when writing in this area, for sure. So
definitely don't err on the side of caution. In fact, in my articles, I never even say contact our law firm today. I don't even say that, because it sounds like if they do, it's scary to me. Like, if they don't, then what happens, right? So I usually say, consider visiting with XYZ law firm to learn more about your legal rights and ensure they remain protected. You know, you can't really say like your law, maybe even ensure they remain protected is a little on that, but I'm very conservative when it comes to it, because it's my livelihood, and I just really want to make sure that I don't get any lawyers in any trouble, right? Because they don't know what the rules are. They don't know what the rules are. So.
Yeah. Do we have any other questions? I think we got to all of them in the chat box. Y'all feel free to just jump on and just ask away if you'd like.
And if they have, since there's a little bit of a lull, I'll just say, if anyone is interested in either considering maybe writing for me, or if you are interested in learning more or have more questions after this is over. I know myself personally, I always think of a really great question like 30 minutes later. So if that's the issue, you know, you can always reach out to Angie, or if you wanted to reach out to me specifically, should I go ahead and give that contact information?
Yeah, that's fine. You can also send it to me, and then I send out a recording after all of these, so I can send it to everybody who registered for the
I put in the chat at the very beginning my LinkedIn as well. So if you want to just message me on LinkedIn, that's fine as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So anybody else have any questions?
I actually had a question. My name is Maya, and I'm a law student graduating this year. And I don't know if I'm ready to take that big leap of faith with making my own blog, although it sounds like a great idea, but just like time-wise. But I do enjoy posting like on LinkedIn content that's interesting to me, and is in the field that I want to work in. Do you have any advice on how to kind of master those algorithms or those robots that kind of run that platform or any of those similar platforms?
Sure. So here's the thing. If you start your content, I just want to be really honest. If you start your content on LinkedIn and you don't have a website to host any of that content, like if you're writing a LinkedIn article or even a post on LinkedIn, there's nowhere for anyone to go except for your LinkedIn profile. And if that's your goal, then that's fine. What I would say to you is this: there's a couple of different strategies that you can use on LinkedIn regarding the algorithm. I am not a LinkedIn expert. I just play one on LinkedIn. So I can tell you what has been successful for me. I always show up as my authentic self. I'm quirky. I'm a dork. I'm a geek. I got Doctor Who TARDIS working back here in sci-fi world, and that is who I am. And I show that on my social media platforms. So I definitely think that if you can put out really, really good content that is informative and valuable, but also showcase who you are as well, obviously in a professional way, right? But, showcase who you are, it can do very well for you. The LinkedIn algorithm seems to favor people who post regularly every day. So a lot of times the content doesn't always have to be, the great American novel, right? It can just be a question, or it can be a way to connect with your audience. Posting every day seems to be very valuable. There are also, some people are against them. I can tell you that they have worked very well for me, which are LinkedIn engagement groups. So these are groups where people get together and they all agree. I will comment on all of your posts and you comment on all of ours. So it is a great way to, and you don't want to join any that are super spammy, because they won't leave you really good content anyway, and LinkedIn figures it out. But if you can find some LinkedIn engagement groups that are reputable and full of genuine people who are trying to help other people out, what happens then is the algorithm of LinkedIn says, wow, this person has 50 comments on genuine, not just like great or cool or whatever. It's got actual comments on it that people are engaging with. Then LinkedIn sees that over time. You can see how well you're doing. If you have Sales Navigator on LinkedIn, you can see what your SSI score, which is your sales something.
Social selling index, and actually anybody can see that.
Anybody can see it.
Yeah,
okay.
It doesn't have to be.
I can't remember what the name of it was. So, the higher up you go with your SSI score, Angie, you can probably speak to that as well. The higher you go up with your SSI score, it's just giving you an indication of how valuable LinkedIn sees your content. I would, Maya, I hope I'm saying your name wrong. I'm probably butchering it.
Yeah, no, you're perfect.
Okay. I would take that same content, Maya, and I would repurpose it. If you are not planning on doing long form blogs, I would take your content from LinkedIn and I would put it on a Facebook group, and I would put it on Twitter. And if you're interested, Maya, I would consider TikTok, which is hot for lawyers right now. Lawyers are all over TikTok, and Clubhouse, which I'm on, and I love Clubhouse. So in fact, I'm doing a Clubhouse talk today at 3. I do 2 of them a week. So that is just a way for you to take the content that you spend time and energy on, right? For LinkedIn, and then repurpose it across platforms. And I will tell you, just like LinkedIn, other platforms want you to be on there as often as possible as well. So.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Oh my gosh, you're so welcome. If you're interested, Maya, in getting in an engagement group, if you're starting to post regularly, find me on LinkedIn and I can add you to one of mine.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, that'll be great.
I'm also part of an engagement group for female lawyers. So if there's any lawyers on the call and want to get in, please let me know. We aren't opening it up to law students yet, but we've talked about it, so it's probably going to happen soon. But right now it's lawyers only. But if anybody wants to get onto Clubhouse, I don't know if any of you guys have heard of Clubhouse. I just discovered Clubhouse about 2 weeks ago, and I am loving it. It's a very interesting social media app. I think it has a lot of potential to be like the next big thing. But
Angie, I actually wrote a really long blog post on it, and that's on my website, lawcool.com/blog. And you can go there and find, and it's Clubhouse for Lawyers. And I love Clubhouse. It is amazing. And frankly, you can probably attest to this as well. Law students are just crushing it on there. And actually, I think, hang on just a second, just a second. I think I have
like 3 invites. So if anybody
I have 2 invites. So if somebody from the group wants a Clubhouse invite, message me on LinkedIn, because I don't want to put my phone number. You
Yeah.
have to do it through a phone number. You can attest to that, Angie, right?
Yeah.
So if anybody wants a Clubhouse invite, message me on LinkedIn, and I will give you my personal phone number so that I can then invite you if that too.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for your time today, Annette. If anybody else has more questions for Annette, feel free to reach out to her on LinkedIn. And if anybody else wants to join Clubhouse and Annette runs out of invites, I have a few as well, so feel free to reach out to me. It was a pleasure talking to all of you guys today, and we'll be back again next week with 2 more meetups. And next week is also our virtual happy hour, so come and stop by that as well. Thank you so much for your time today, Annette.
Thank you. I love it. I wish something like this had been around 100,000 years ago when I was going to law school.
It wasn't that long ago.
Listen, we didn't, like, the internet was IRC chat, okay? There was none of this. I'm totally dating myself. I'll be 50 this year. So.
Wow. Oh my goodness. You look amazing, by the way, for 50.
Thank you. Oh my goodness. Now you're my new best friend, Angie.
Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today, and I look forward to seeing you guys again next week. Have a wonderful weekend.